Hey, the stream is live. I never look at that rectangle that the stream is live. And I know it's going out live on both YouTube and LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Yeah, it has been a while. And I'm not really going to dwell on that part. I just want to smooth back in to being a person who invites others to come in and talk about what they love to talk about along the lines of caregiving, enriched longevity, and generally aging. Um, I I'm not going to ask you questions, but I'm sure I'm going to bring up a subject that you're going to have something to add to. I know that I am going to something called WOW this Friday. And you think, wow, what's it going to be about? Well, it is Women of Waco. And you are the one who said, you are a woman of Waco, Texas.
Indeed,
You
you are.
should go. They had a huge summit conference with breakouts and main speakers, panel, a theme, lots of exhibitors, all that you would expect from a live gathering that was strategically pointed at Central Texas and Waco, the greater Waco area, which includes a lot of different communities. It's called WOW. It happens only once a month. So you know that when we gather, eat our food, network at the tables, throw in our raffle tickets for gifts that are brought by different individuals, different businesses, because that's another opportunity to get their business name spoken. Or you can sponsor. There's two different sponsors for the upcoming WOW, and then that you're there to network because it's fun, because you paid only $80 for the whole year. You do have to pay for your food, but you have the opportunity to walk in and be known and be constantly advertised through all their emails and obviously on their website. So, who's the keynote speaker going to be? It's a gal that we know, Anna Hoffman, and she works with Home Instead. Will her keynote be about how to grow flowers in the spring? Will it be about how much I loved my grandmother? Will it be about presenting things? Her husband is into some very unique ministries. What is she going to talk about? But again, her business, or the business with which she is involved, she's not the owner of it, is going to be elevated in front of, goodness, there were so many. We could only speak for 20 seconds, or, we got that meh at the last one. So I would say about 100 businesses are represented on a given second Friday of the month. People are going to know about Home Instead. So think in terms of this sentence. They think that I should move into one of those communities, but I wonder if I have resources if I remain home instead. Here's another sentence. It would be better for your enriched longevity, for your healthy, continuous living, if you moved into our home instead. We would love to be there for you for some of those challenges that you are facing. And rather than occupy a place, across the street or 4 miles away, we're wondering if maybe we should move into your home instead. So those are just some ideas of how they ended up with the name, that there are other options. A place that specializes in memory care, a large building where everyone independently owns or leases an apartment. Alongside that, they have food prepared for them. They have activities. They can just come out into the hallway or ride the elevator up or down to something that's entertaining and engaging. They have instant neighbors to play their favorite card games with. There are a lot of options as you continue different than you did during all those years where you were living in an apartment or living, in a home that you owned, whether you mowed your own lawn, whether you traveled a lot, and now you're living differently. So I just wanted to say that WOW said yes when that person offered, or WOW specifically asked Anna, would you please be our presenter for this month? So there's really only 12 opportunities aside from their summit or their special, gala gathering, which includes anyone, non-members, but it's put together by Women of Waco. They are giving a stage, an elevation, a megaphone to a person who generally is involved with people who are seeing themselves as aging or someone else sees their aging and says, we need some options for you, or I could use some variations to the way that I've lived up until now. I will simply let you respond to anything that you heard me just say, in case it jogged your memory or you just want to talk about being my producer, whatever you would like.
So am I correct in remembering that Home Instead does non-medical work?
You are correct. There's a huge, that isn't a skinny line. That's a big fat line. You've got to have the right training and you've got to have the right credentials to do anything that would make a medical difference. But you can show up in 114 different ways for a person that will keep them from needing more medically trained help. Falling in the shower, that one jumps into my mind, but also noticing that hearing aids need batteries, realizing that there's something simple that could be moved, changed, mitigated, removed, to keep that person from falling again. But let's veer off of falling for a moment. How about the person who puts themselves in harm's way? It's not their fault. Criminals are horribly good at what they do. Person who's putting themselves in harm's way because someone is pretending to be kind and caring. And instead, you get someone who truly is looking out for their best interests and is not looking for what they can gain from a person who is just more vulnerable because they're spending a lot of time alone and starting to show signs of loneliness. And for one person, that's a target that they're aiming at. And for another person, that's something unacceptable. They would much rather that person have different activities, different options, different people in their life to make sure that the loneliness that any person can feel in any age, any stage of life, doesn't turn into a monster that comes back to bite them, in that a person says, oh, this person's reaching out for friendship. I will use that for my own gain, to abuse them or to commit any other crimes against them. So yes, home instead, not medical help.
And you mentioned before that you volunteer with Friends for Life, and we were just listening to an interview that I did with the founder and executive director, Inez Russell, because you mentioned loneliness, and she told the story of a lady that bought siding for her brick home multiple times just because she wanted someone to talk to.
Yes, I don't know that exact circumstance. It may have been a little while back. And this lady purchased aluminum siding 3 times because the man was so nice to talk to. There was nothing nefarious about him. And it may have been a different person that she talked to each time. She didn't need aluminum siding times 3. It was just so enjoyable to have them on the phone and have them ask about her home and to find out what she would like. It was so enjoyable, and it was not what someone might guess, oh, she was into dementia. No one would do something like that unless they've lost the ability to reason or to remember or to problem solve. No, none of those were at play. She simply had 4 walls, no longer had the opportunity to go to be with people. People did not take the opportunity to go to be with her. And desperation, maybe she just discovered, oh my goodness, I just love these people. If they call me again, I will keep them on the phone for an hour and a half. They were so wonderful about everything they were, saying to me, and I can afford it. I have the money. I can just keep buying things because they keep talking to me. I haven't researched it, but once upon a time, I remember hearing the phrase solitary confinement, a punishment for a person who either initially did something terrible against the law, or they are not sticking with the rules of being incarcerated. And so they are placed in solitary confinement, or maybe they consider them too much of a con artist or a threat to the inmates, to the guards, whatever it is. They put them in solitary confinement, no interaction with other human beings. It's a punishment. It is a way of keeping someone bad away from others. And that's what happens to so many people, because part of their life has become disabled. Just like your, electronics can be disabled, something. So Yeah,
So
friends for life.
and isolation isn't limited to the people who receive care. Caregivers are also can become isolated when they don't have other people to share their burdens with.
Mhm. It's been documented that their health plummets. They go from a person who was at a level without, you know, everything that they needed medically, everything they needed socially, psychologically was at a higher level. But if you are caregiving, or I'll just say, if you are doing the things for a person that they used to do for themselves, you can go down a notch. Now, if that person is, 25 pounds and fits in a car seat and you can drive around with them, you can go to a park, a library, you can go to church, um, a place where you can, a mall, somewhere. You can go somewhere and be with other people. But if that person weighs as much as you do or more, if that person needs to be connected to an air hose, if they don't feel, or they can't tolerate being around activity, if they're going to need help that just isn't available in most public situations, if they're going to maybe need some hygiene help and there's just nowhere to take care of that sort of thing, that caregiver ends up, their health absolutely bottoms out, and they end up hearing the words, "You are going to be dead before they are."
Mm.
And sometimes they don't hear those words, they simply die. It's they're working so hard at helping the other person and keeping them alive, keeping them happy, keeping them from running out in the street, keeping them from getting bed sores if they are confined by inability to move. A lot of what they used to do is poured into someone else, and the weeks and the months and the years go by. And it's not their fault. It's just that when you're raising kids, when you feel isolated because you're at home with 3 little ones, there is a point at which they become self-sufficient. And if you are caregiving, unless it's just short-term recovery from, we'll say, an incident, it can be very long. I hear of people saying more than 10 years that they cared for someone night and day.
Yeah, that's the thing is children get better. And as we age, we don't. That is,
Yeah,
children become more, as you say, become more capable. But as we age, we become less capable the longer we go.
right. There's recovery, and then there's chronic. Something's just going to continue. You might be the caregiver for someone who they hardly take vitamins. They are physically, they can keep up with you, but it might be just one thing. It might be diminished eyesight. And you've got everything from, well, I can't take them to a movie. That's not fair. They get to sit there and listen to the movie while I enjoy. Or, oh no, they're going to try to go outside. This is not dementia. This is not that they're cognitively making choices that that person would not have made. But they want to go outside and work on the garden, and you're like, oh, like 2 out of 10 times they get injured. They fall on something sharp. They turn something on that they thought they were turning off, or it was the wrong thing. They trip over the dog, etc. See, it sounds like I'm talking about falling a lot. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to continued life than trying to avoid falling. But I will mention that once a person has had a fall, boy, do they look at the rest of their life differently. And it can cause more physical problems because they're hunching over. They're using a cane when the cane, they don't need to lean on the cane, but they're hoping that that third foot is going to keep them from ever falling again. And they're kind of cranking their body in a different direction.
Yeah, and if people let their muscle tone go, there's more opportunities for falling and just general injuries around joints and so forth.
I think that I should not blame TV ads or magazine ads or ads that pop up on our screen. I think that I should not blame them. I think that it's a constant reminder as products are being sold that there's just, when there's freezing weather, one of the things that is recommended is that you leave the faucet dripping, because moving water doesn't freeze in pipes as easily, or at, the in the 20-degree range, maybe in the teens too. Moving water just isn't going to freeze, expand, and break open a pipe as easily. So just that constant dripping sound in the middle of the night when everything's quiet, you hear that thunk, thunk, or tick, 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 and you're so aware of it. If you're having to continue to do that during the day, you're probably not going to hear it because you're making other noise. If your life is full and you're keeping up, and your answer to how are you doing? How's life? What's going on? I'm so busy. You're probably going to disregard advertisements that start with, oh my goodness, you have this chronic situation that you've got, there's something about you that is making you feel pain, social discomfort, etc., that is more frequently associated with aging, with you are getting up there, you are beyond 40, beyond 50, beyond 80, whatever. You're probably going to be able to just ignore those. But if your life is quiet, like nighttime, and those advertisements are coming, and it's like you're nodding your head saying, I need those products. I need all of those things to help the problems of aging. And then it switches in the minds of people who are hearing that. Aging is a disease. Aging makes you look bad. Aging is something you don't want other people to see. Oh my goodness, how many times I'd never look these things up. I don't click on it, but algorithms keep telling me, we'll let you know how to dress so that you don't look your age. And subliminally, that is saying, oh, gracious, don't let people know you just turned 66, because they'll just be like, it'll be the shunning. You didn't do that, did you? For like a group that says, whatever you do, don't behave this way. Don't make that choice. Don't let us see you, having this desire or interest or collecting items or whatever it is that group doesn't want you to do. It's like, whatever you do, don't let people see on your skin, in your choices, the way you talk. Don't let them see your true age. That doesn't happen at other ages. They don't say, oh, whatever you do, don't let people see that you're 25. I don't think that it even happens. I don't think that it even happens at 35. But as soon as a business knows that they can cause someone to dislike who they are, the way they are, they will let you know. Does that mean that you shouldn't look at their suggestions for dressing? Well, maybe you should. Maybe you could see something there and go, you know what? I like the way that I dress. That's interesting, but she's a model, I'm not. So that's just fine. Or I never thought of putting those things together. I've always worn my shirt out. Never thought of tucking it in, getting a belt. Whatever. But please don't start from the thought of the way that I am simply because I've woken up and gotten out of bed this morning like I did yesterday morning, like I did 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I need to make sure that I don't let people see what's going on. That is, they say that if you use a fulcrum and your lever is long enough, you can move the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I have not found the type of fulcrum lever apparatus to take out of the culture this constant dripping, whether it's a blop, 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 or a tick, 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 of someone saying, oh, I won't ask you, happy birthday, I won't ask you how old you are. And it's like, so you've already assessed me anyway. Because you wouldn't say that to a child. I won't ask you how old you are because, oh, heaven forbid, you're not in single digits anymore. Or someone that you've assessed as being younger, much younger than you or something. You just be like, oh my goodness, are you old enough to, have you, are you attending a college somewhere? And someone could say, oh, I'm 31. I was done with college like 9 years ago. Oh, okay. Well, I couldn't tell how old you were. But with other people, it's like, and then of course the little jibes, the little, well, now that you're here at this point, you probably are starting to feel, creaky, etc. And I don't like the clicking sounds that my body makes. I'm not attracted to them, but I also don't have to hate my body. It's brought me this far. I can thank it that it's making clicking sounds when I'm warming up to use my arms to either drive my walking or to use some of the equipment at Anytime Fitness. I can thank my body for still moving and not have this constant self-abasement of, ugh, if only I didn't have that look, then what? People would like me? Or then I wouldn't have to be embarrassed that I exist? That's that.
So
I
one of
mean, when
the
you unpack it that way, you realize, wow, I can use a product because I decide to.
one of the things that also leads to isolation is just being able to get around your community. And so you're also
Yeah.
working with another group that is addressing some of those issues, or at least bringing visibility.
And they're called Mobilize Waco. I saw two women sitting off to the side, and I tend to gravitate toward people that are not already clustered and in the middle of a conversation. I tend to gravitate off to the side. And by the time they knew that I was a caregiver, a hired caregiver in individual homes, ended up being something over 90 different families who knew that when I came to the door, I was there for a good reason. And that in 2022, I started to ask people to come on my screen and talk about their business, their areas of expertise or lived experience, etc., to come on my screen and talk about aging, because that was something that I ran into that I felt really comfortable talking with people whose aging was very apparent because they needed assistance from me, but their aging was we talked about the past, their lived times of being heroes, or the way that they handled life as a parent, or what businesses I assisted people who a sentence to describe them would start with the word first. I will simply say that one female was the first female business owner in her entire state in that industry, the very first one to ever be the owner in her entire state. That's a little harder to find today, that someone for an entire industry, not a niche, but a huge industry that exists in different states of the United States, that she was the first and for a long time the only female owner. So I once these two ladies who were sitting off to the side at a big event where people were already clustered together, talking with the person who had just spoken from the podium, or the person who everyone clapped for. It was a big celebration, and they found out what I do and what I've done. They said, maybe you'd be interested in coming to our group meeting, which is also one, it's the second Tuesday, so we meet again tomorrow evening, and it's Mobilize Waco. Mobilize meaning if there are any barriers to you getting around town at any age, then are there ways that our city could remove some barriers that they just simply aren't aware of, because people with sight and people who do not use wheelchairs created that ability to cross the street. They put in everything that is required by the policies of our region, but in this situation, it does not fully serve a person who doesn't have sight, is legally blind, or a person who doesn't move anywhere without a wheelchair. So one of the gals not only uses a wheelchair since she was old enough to be able to push a wheelchair, so starting in childhood, but she also drives herself to work, and she works at the bank. So we're not looking at a person who is isolated. We're not looking at a person who has any cognitive barriers to getting around town, but there are details like people deciding to park either in a handicap spot or in the stripes that are next to a handicap parking place, so that the side of her van cannot open and the ramp cannot place itself. And even if she got to the end of the ramp, she could not scoot around whatever vehicle is over into the stripes to be able to get out. So one handicap spot is available, and it's completely useless because it's a good size van, and the ramp has to be as long as it is in order for it to not be at a dangerous angle. And there has to be space beyond it for a person to move their own. There's a lot of measuring, there's a lot of science, there's a lot of engineering that has to go into this. People who don't use those vans simply don't know. And the problem is that she knows a person who suffered a heat stroke situation, because when they returned, because it was getting too hot, it is Texas, when they returned to their van, they were not able to extend their own ramp. Were not able to get inside of their van and get the air conditioning on because someone parked there and left. Could the city fix that in some way? Was the striped area adequate as is for the full navigation? Was there, is there a way? There is a way that citizens, including the person who needs to get into their vehicle, who lives an independent life, can actually report that this car is parked improperly without waiting. I'll say, if the police are busy with a lot that's going on, how long is it going to take a police officer to come, assess the situation, and then call for a tow truck to move that vehicle? Same situation. You're out in the heat. You have nothing. You can't even get to the water that you have in the ice chest in your own van to cool down. You're an independent human being. Should you have to sit there and go, help me, someone get me cool water, somebody get me inside of a building that's, somebody pick me up out of my chair and stick me in their car to bring me somewhere that's, or turn on your air conditioning and inconvenience you. Many people are really uncomfortable with begging for help. And they are also just angry, wondering, is that person going to come back in just a moment? Were they dropping off someone that maybe they don't have a tag for their car, but that person needed special accommodations? Will they be back in just a moment? It's just a whole human situation. So there is a way to report cars that have disregarded that ordinance. And but who knows about it? And how do you find out that you can just get the app on your phone and start reporting? You know, there's a lot of information that people simply can't scroll through it all and learn it all and get every single app. So what could happen? The city could decide to put up a sign that's got a QR code saying, if you see that someone is abusing this parking accommodation, you can click, without it becoming a permanent app, you can click here, you take a picture of the back of the car to show if there's a
Yes, the license
symbol.
plate. Mhm.
Yeah. You take a picture in the front windshield to see if there's a tag hanging there. And there's one more. Oh, just a picture of the situation. Are their tires over 2 inches or 2 feet? Whatever. And then that person is contacted, is told, this is the fine that you have now, that you now receive. And you do have an option to reduce your fine to only 10%. So $500 becomes $50 if you take this online course, put in your answers on the quiz at the end, and submit. So a person who sees, I can be instantly reported, and the owner of the car, the license plate, they will, whoever they are, yourself or someone else, is going to receive a $500 fine. I'm just choosing a number. They might think 3 times before they abuse that accommodation. So Mobilize Waco is in part educating people, educating the community how to make it more of a passive advocate. I just made that up. They are a passive advocate by bringing attention, a sign that's a different color that says, you will be reported by a citizen who clicks on this QR code. True. If they click on the QR code, send in those 3 things, you will be reported. And it's like, ding, 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 ding. Nope, don't want to be reported. It costs money to have those signs set up. And so who makes that decision? Who can bring attention to that situation and go, I'm a proponent of being a community that not only is more welcoming to the people who live here, but also to my customers who are going to come here, the tourists that are going to arrive and see, some performance that my child is doing in the park for a special occasion or something. I can be a proponent for this community because people who need extra accommodations beyond a person like me who walks with tennis or mobilizes myself with tennis shoes and glasses, as opposed to a person that mobilizes themselves with a service dog and a wheelchair, can go, wait a minute, I can participate in this right now. This is wrong that this is happening. And I can participate, and it will never come back to bite me. My phone number is not recorded. The pictures are recorded. So just things like that. But it takes a small, slightly angry mob to make these things happen. I'm glad you asked about Mobilize Waco, because I do have a meeting to go to tomorrow night, and Bob Cisco is going to demonstrate for us how he uses technology to map an exterior, an intersection, how he maps everything that happens there, just similar to mapping the inside of a building with his equipment, and how he can program in, it should be this way, and his equipment and his data says, oh, well, that's not going to work because there's no curb cut there. So we get smarter, but I also look for ways that we can cause a person who's just never been aware, that includes me, just never been aware, hey, you can't just park there. A person who does this, or a person who's using a cane, is going to meet with a failure that they did not create, is going to meet with a fate that they didn't cause that because they were too lazy or something like that, because something should have been, you can't have this come out here because that's where somebody just put in speed bumps right there. So it's not going to work. In theory, that's where a corner is, but someone just put in a speed bump, and now you're asking someone to be at an odd angle or to try to, without being able to see it, is the speed bump 12 inches wide or, 5 feet, things like that. So thank you for asking.
Well, I've got a recording that starts at the top of the hour, so I'm going to have to run pretty soon here.
Well, I'll just say I look forward to doing this at noon live because of agingbetterNetwork.com. And I call this Aspects of Aging. And I love to have people come onto the screen who says, I'm not really bothered by my aging. This is what I've been doing. And I love helping other people see their next phase of life through a completely different lens. I'm like, oh, you come on. And someone else who says, well, I created a documentary, a play. I give speeches, but I do it in such a way that my audience is engaged and they go, wow, I just experienced what it's like to be disregarded because of the number of candles that would be on my birthday cake. Just people who go, but what does this have to do with aging? And I'm like, well, if it's not about Lamaze class, as far as I know, people who are aging are not also giving birth so far. I'm sure there's exceptions, but in general, if it's about continuing mental wellness, continuing spiritual wellness, continuing to make the difference you want to make in the world, then it probably is going to come right in under aging. Caregiving, as you mentioned, caregivers can suffer and die from isolation. They can also find resources at agingbetterNetwork.com that no one seems to know exists. And I think you should know about this. So I encourage anyone to click around at agingbetterNetwork.com because you are part of the network. If you come on my screen, if you go there to find resources, if you decide to take a course from someone who is just teaching you how to be prepared because longevity is in your family and somebody is going to need you in some way, with those difficult things like should they still be driving, that you can find it there and you are part of that network. And this show is called Aspects of Aging because it isn't always issues or problems or challenges. Sometimes it's just another facet of this fascinating part of your life that could go on for about as many decades as you've had already. So thank you so much for just letting me have a soft open on continuing what I started in 2022.